welcome to another training video inside Dispatch University Lite. And in this training video, we're going to show you all the basics about truck dispatching. So I'm going to show you what it actually is, how it works, and how much money you can make doing this, okay? And just a hint, it's a lot. And not only that, but towards the end of this training video, I'm also going to show you how to set up a truck dispatching business from scratch. I hope you guys are excited about that. We got a lot of stuff to cover. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. All right, so here we are in the basics, and here's what we're going to cover in today's training video. First and foremost, I want to go over some foundational business principles. Think of these as the laws of business. Okay, these are true no matter what type of business you start. So we're going to cover that first. And then we're going to do some dispatching 101. Okay, just think of this as like a basic overview of the entire dispatching industry, how it works, what are you supposed to do, what are you expected to do, and how much money you can actually make. So I'm going to give you a full rundown on dispatching itself. After we cover that, I'm also going to help you set up your entire truck dispatching business using the worksheets that I've created. Okay, so I've created like 6 or 7 worksheets that you will go through, essentially just answer some questions, and you will have your entire business basically ready to go. So this will make more sense when we actually go through it. And then finally, at the end of this training video, just going to summarize all this up for you, give you your action steps, give you your homework for the day. As always, just a few housekeeping things we have to get out of the way. First and foremost, sign up for the newsletter. Go to dispatcheruniversity.com/newsletter. And you can get important updates regarding the course. Also follow me on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. You can follow me there for exclusive content that you can't find anywhere else. On YouTube, it's Guild22. On Instagram, it's Guild22 LLC. And on TikTok, it's Guild22 Trucking LLC. And of course, I would really appreciate it if you guys share this course and this community on your social media or with your friends and family. We can start a revolution and change people's lives, but I need your help to do that. Quick warning, this is the most important video in the course. Watch the entire video, don't skip, don't fast forward. And pro tip, watch the video in 2 times speed. It'll go by 2 times quicker. So with all that out of the way, let's get into the foundational business principles. Again, just think of these as the laws of business, okay? These things that I'm about to tell you guys, these are true no matter what type of business you start, and they're especially true if you want a easy to run and easy to grow truck dispatching business. So let's just get right into it. First and foremost, you need to understand what is a business, okay? What is the core function of any business in the world? And it's very, very simple. You guys already have seen this diagram before. We went through it in the model training video, which is the last training video, but let me just go through it very quickly. The goal of any business is just to take their clients from their current situation to their desired situation. All right. And the way that you do it, the way that you take people from their current situation to their desired situation is through your product or service. As truck dispatchers, our job, our transformation that we're trying to make for our carriers is to help them make more money while running less miles. Okay. So keep that in mind as you're building out your business. So that is the core function of any business, but there's other things that you need to keep in mind as well. First and foremost, you need to understand the importance of having a converting offer. This is everything in business. Everything is about having a converting offer. If you get this right, everything else is solved by default. Get it wrong, and nothing you try will work no matter how hard you try. I know I touched on this in the last training video as well. I tried to emphasize the importance of having a strong offer, but I just want you guys to realize just how big of a deal that actually is. Having a strong offer above everything else is going to make up 40% of your business at least, okay? If you have a very, very strong offer, a very compelling offer that the market has never seen and that they really, really want, you're basically just going to be running your business on autopilot. You can make a ton of mistakes inside your business and have it be very imperfect as long as you have a converting offer. If you don't have a converting offer, everything else in your business needs to be perfect. So just think about what type of battle you want to fight. Me personally, I rather have a bunch of imperfections, but still make a lot of money as long as I have a good offer. Okay. It just makes life a lot easier. So We need a converting offer. I'm going to help you guys do that in this training video. The next thing I need you guys to understand is the market wants what the market wants. You can't create desire for your product or service. You can only exploit the desire that already exists in the market. You will slowly die if you try to fight against this principle. In other words, does the carrier actually want what you're trying to sell? Okay. It sounds like a simple question, but many people forget this as they start to build out their businesses. And this actually reminds me of a really good example that I want to share with you guys as well. I was listening to this Harvard professor on one of my YouTube videos that I was just watching. And he asked his students a question. He said, hey, imagine that you own a hot dog stand. What is the single most important lever that you can manipulate to get the most amount of sales? Basically, what is the single most important thing that you could do to get more sales? And a bunch of students gave a lot of different answers. Some people said, hey, have great marketing. Other people said, hey, have great ingredients. So they gave a bunch of different answers. But he said, no, none of those will make the biggest impact. The biggest impact will come from having a hungry crowd. It sounds so simple and so obvious, Obviously, if you have a hot dog stand and you have a hungry crowd, no matter what your ingredients are, no matter what your location is or what your marketing looks like, you will sell out of all your hot dogs. Okay. And that is the power of having a hungry crowd, serving to a hungry crowd. So we want to make sure with our truck dispatching service, we're providing something to a very, very hungry crowd. And I'm going to help you guys do that in this training video as well. So that's the second thing I want you guys to keep in mind. The third thing you need to keep in mind, the third principle is the new versus more. Okay. So instead of trying to create a brand new product or service, identify what's already working and simply do more of that in a slightly better way. I hate to say it, guys, but you're not Elon Musk. Okay. You're not Steve Jobs. You're not Bill Gates. You're not building something revolutionary. Okay. And we don't want to do that anyways. That's not the only way to find a lot of success. You won't become a billionaire, potentially, by doing truck dispatching, but you can become a millionaire. You can make hundreds of thousands of dollars by doing truck dispatching. And you don't have to invent something brand new to, make money as an entrepreneur, as a business. That's a fallacy that I believed in. When I first started out, I thought that I had to, come up with something crazy unique that no one had ever heard of or ever seen. That is a very, very easy way to fail. Instead of trying to revolutionize the industry, just take what's already working, what's already proven in the market, and refine that a little bit. Okay. Make it just 1% better. Or if you can't make the service itself better, make the offer better. Okay. What you put out into the world, what you will do for other people, make that slightly better. There's so many different things that you can do to make money in business that don't involve, inventing the next iPhone. So I just wanted you guys to keep that in mind. Okay. We're just trying to be 1% better than everyone else. And actually, funny enough, this brings me into my last point that I want to make is understanding the blue ocean strategy. Okay. So focus on creating new untapped markets, or in other words, blue oceans, rather than competing in saturated ones, which are called red oceans. You can convert a red ocean into a blue ocean by creating a unique, new, and valuable offer or service. So again, as I mentioned before, you can either make your service better, slightly better than what everyone else is doing as a truck dispatcher, or you can make your offer to the market better, something that they've never seen before, something that's unique and valuable. If you're able to do both of those things, you will definitely succeed in business. Okay. And I'm going to help you guys do both of them in this training video at the end. Okay. I keep mentioning that, but all the worksheets that I have for you, that's the whole reason I built this out for you guys. All right. So I'm just going to make it very, very easy for you to follow all these principles. And again, just set up a very, very successful truck dispatching business from scratch. Anyways, it's very important you keep all these principles in mind. They might sound a little boring, but again, this is where the money is made. So with all this in mind, let's actually talk about dispatching. So I want to give you a quick rundown on what dispatching actually is and how it works. So this is currently how the traditional method looks. This is how loads are booked without a dispatcher involved. Okay. And there's typically three parties involved in the traditional method. We have the carrier, who is the company that's actually moving the load. Then we have the broker, who is essentially the middleman that connects the carrier and the shipper. And they're primarily working for the shipper. Okay, they're not working for the carrier's interests. And then we have the shipper, who is the company that needs the load moved. Pretty straightforward. Okay. And how it typically works is that the shipper will have a budget for how much that they're willing to spend to move a load. So let's say, for example, they're willing to spend $1,000 in this example. The broker will come in and take that $1,000, and then they will pass off $700 to the carrier and pocket $300 for themselves. And if you're a math wizard, you will know that that is 30% of the initial load amount. Okay. Again, very straightforward, very simple. However, there's a few key problems with this traditional method. First and foremost, carriers don't have time to sit around for hours and hours on load boards. They spend most of their day driving on the road. Okay, they spend hours and hours and hours every single day just driving. And the little amount of time that they do have, the breaks that they have, they don't want to spend that, just looking through load boards and negotiating with brokers. It's a big headache. Plus, it's not even enough time to find all the crazy opportunities that are out there. So that is the biggest, one of the biggest problems that carriers face. They kind of get screwed over on that end. Another thing that they lack is experience. So carriers don't have the knowledge or experience to find high-paying loads. They don't know what type of load board to use. They don't know what type of software or tools that they need to use. They don't even know how to negotiate rates properly. Okay? They just don't have the expertise to be doing this. And dispatching is a skill that needs to be mastered. So there's another reason why they get screwed over by brokers. Okay? On top of that, they don't have the tools necessary to be doing this type of job, to find hot markets. They don't know what software to use, as I mentioned before, to find hot market lanes where there are more loads that need to be delivered than there are trucks available. And if you think about it, it's very simple economics. Okay. You want to be in a location, in a market where there is very high demand, but very low supply of trucks. Okay. But again, I don't blame carriers. They just don't know how to find these hot market lanes. Usually how they find their lanes that they run is just through a friend or just through whispers in the industry. Their friend will tell them, oh, last week I made this much money running a load from here to here. Okay. Oh, look at me. I'm making $3 per mile last week. But they don't know that literally every single hour, the hot markets are changing. They try to run that same lane this week, and then they find out, oh, they're only making $2 per mile now because everyone heard about that lane and everyone started running that same load. So you need to be on top of your game. You need to be ahead of the curve instead of be reactionary to it. But again, this is something that carriers don't know how to do and they get taken advantage of. And then finally, this is specifically for new carriers, but I've even seen experienced carriers struggle with this, and that's not having a network. So carriers don't have an established set of brokers to get consistent loads from. A lot of inexperienced carriers like to do transactional loads. Okay, that's just what I like to call it. You basically are just doing a transaction. There's no relationship involved. Whereas on the other hand, the successful carriers, they do relationship loads. Okay, so they will build a book of brokers that they will get consistent loads from. Even when the market is down or the market is higher and the broker needs to make some money, they will give them some wiggle room as long as the carrier is making their profit margin. Okay. But these are the successful carriers. The inexperienced carriers, they will jump around from broker to broker and not invest any time in building any relationships in the industry. So when the trucking recession eventually comes, they're left stranded. Okay, no broker wants to give them any sort of wiggle room to make some money. This comes through experience and this comes through years in the industry, which a lot of carriers don't have. So again, these are generally the biggest problems with the traditional method of booking a load, where the carrier just books a load for themselves. Okay, they're never able to find the highest paying lanes when they do it themselves because of these issues. However, this is where the margin flow method comes in. And in the margin flow method, the dispatcher is introduced as the frontline soldier for the carriers. So this is what the margin flow method looks like. We have the dispatcher, the carrier, the broker, and shipper. Fairly similar setup. Now, instead of getting the load for $1,000 from the shipper, the dispatcher is able to position the carrier in a hot market lane where the shipper is in less control. Okay. The shipper is willing to pay a lot more money because, again, the demand for the product to be moved is very high, but the supply of trucks to move it is low. So because of that, the shipper is forced to pay more money. So instead of $1,000, let's say it's $1,250. The broker will take that $1,250. And again, instead of charging 30%, they will give that load for 20%. Okay. They will only take a 20% cut for themselves, because if they don't move that load, they end up losing the shipper as a contract. So even the broker is willing to take a little bit less in terms of percentage for this load, just because they need that load moved. All right. And because of that, the carrier benefits. They not only make more money from the shipper, but also from the broker. So the carrier ends up making $1,000, but of course the carrier has to pay you for your services. I recommend charging 10%. And if you do charge 10%, you will end up making $100. The carrier will be left with $900 in gross revenue. Again, very simple stuff. Okay. So just think about that. Just compare these two methods together. In the traditional method, the carrier makes $700 in gross revenue. In the margin flow method, the carrier does less work and ends up making more money. This right here is how I explain the logic of hiring a dispatcher to carriers. Okay. And it's something that you can use when you start doing sales calls with carriers as well. Because a lot of carriers in this industry, they have been scammed by dispatchers before. So they're very doubtful about dispatchers. Okay. They think that they don't offer a valuable service. A lot of them do. But if you walk them through this example and you show them what's possible with a good dispatcher, then, you kind of drop all that risk for them. So again, at the end of the day, it's a win-win. The carrier makes more money working with you doing less work, and you make money not having a bunch of overhead expenses. Okay. You run a very profitable business as well. Speaking of which, how much money can you actually make? So I want to quickly dive into that. First and foremost, let's just say it's you alone. Okay. You're the only dispatcher and you're charging 10%. And let's say, for example, you are making $20,000 per month from each truck that you're dispatching for. And by the way, that's a very conservative number. We're currently making $22,000 to $23,000 on average across 80 trucks. Okay. So you can definitely earn like $25,000 to $26,000 at the very least. And it all depends on what type of equipment you're running, all that good stuff. But on the low end, let's say you're generating $20,000 in load revenue from each truck and you're charging 10%. And let's also assume that you're working with 10 trucks. As a solo dispatcher, you can work with up to 12 to maybe even 15 trucks. But again, let's stay kind of conservative and let's say you're only going to work with 10 trucks. That means if you're working with 10 trucks, you're making $20,000 per month for these trucks and you're charging 10% of that load amount, you will make $20,000 per month in gross revenue. That doesn't sound too bad, especially when you consider that what are your biggest expenses? I mean, you have a load board that you might be paying $200 per month for. You have a CRM system, a lead capture system that you might be paying $100 a month for. And that's about it. Okay. You're running this business yourself and you're making almost $20,000 per month in straight profit. There's not a lot of other business opportunities that can provide you this type of income. Okay. And imagine if you hired another dispatcher who also handled 10 trucks and you were paying them like $4,000, $5,000 per month to do your dispatching within the US. Okay. You would still end up making a lot of money. You have a lot of margin in there. So again, the possibilities in this business for you as a truck dispatcher, they're insane. You can make a lot of money running this type of business. But before you get too excited, before you start making this type of money, there is some work that you need to do. And that is where our worksheets come in. Okay. So I want to help you set up your entire truck dispatching business from scratch. And I've provided these worksheets for you that will help you do that. And in these worksheets, we're essentially going to get all the basics right. So first and foremost, we need to understand what type of niche are we going to pursue. Are we going to work with box truck owner operators? Are we going to work with reefers? Are we going to work with hazmats? There's so many different potential markets that you can pursue. Okay. So that's step number one. Figure out what type of niche you're going to pursue. The second thing we need to do is market research. So what problems do the people in this niche that we pursue, what type of problems do they have? What do they want? How do they solve it currently? These are all questions that need to be answered. After that, we need to understand our customer avatar. So this is essentially a fictional representation of your ideal customer. So we're just going to detail their demographic, interests, and needs. And the reason we do this is because we want to be hyper specific on who we target. Okay? Because again, we're pursuing a specific niche. We're not providing truck dispatching for literally every type of owner operator. Okay? If you're working with dry van owner operators, we want to make a customer avatar for them, a specific person, the ideal representation of our customer who is a dry van owner operator. So when we're doing all of our traffic sources, when we're running paid ads, when we're creating content on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, when we're doing all that type of stuff, we're targeting a very specific person in mind. This is very, very important, and a lot of people overlook this, okay? But you're not going to overlook it. You're going to complete that worksheet. After the customer avatar, we're going to, of course, talk about the offer. This is massive. So what do you sell? What price are you going to sell it at? Are you going to introduce any scarcity and urgency? Is there any value stacks? What are the bonuses that you're going to provide? All that fun stuff. So we're going to talk about all that stuff in the offer worksheet. After that, we're going to talk about the messaging. So you've created the offer, but how are you going to explain what you do to a complete stranger? You're basically going to create an elevator pitch that you can use in your traffic sources. Again, when you're running paid ads, when you're creating content, when you're doing cold calls, if you need to explain what you do to a complete stranger, you will be able to do that effectively after you complete this worksheet. After that, we're going to do the dispatch uniqueness worksheet. So how is your dispatching business different than everyone else's? What are you going to do to stand out? And then finally, we're going to create a business plan. So we're going to take all these worksheets that we worked on and use them to create a clear roadmap for our business. Now, I know this is a lot, but again, this is where all the gold is made. This is where the magic happens, okay? The thinking, the planning, that is the hard part about business. If you put in all the hard work right now up front in the thought behind your business, in all this planning behind your business, in all these worksheets, you will save yourself a lot of headache and a lot of failure later down the road, okay? You will hit the ground running and you will be successful from day one if you complete these worksheets. Anyways, with that in mind, let's actually go through one of these worksheets together. I'm not going to go through all of them with you. Obviously, that would take a long time, but all of these worksheets are basically set up in the same way or in a similar way. So we're just going to go through this one together, the niche selection worksheet, and the rest you can do by yourself, okay? And a link to all these worksheets will be in the description below in the resources section. And if you can't find it there, I have a URL that you can type in. So you can go to dispatcheruniversity.com/niche selection. So just go ahead and open that up and I will do the same and we can work through that together. So here we are in the niche selection worksheet. Let me actually make this bigger so you can see it. And this is what we're going to work through together. Okay. So in this worksheet, again, as I mentioned, we're just going to pick what type of market you're going to pursue. You don't want to pursue every single type of market there is. You want to be hyper specific and you want to become an expert in that market. Okay. Because again, it's much easier to stand out as the best drive-in truck dispatcher than it is to stand out as the best truck dispatcher, period. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. Now, at the top of all these worksheets, I also have a little description of what this worksheet is about. So you can get started with this worksheet to pinpoint your truck dispatching niche. It's a key step that's both easy and enjoyable. Remember, you can also draw ideas from the 50 trucking niche list document. And don't forget, using ChatGPT can give you some great tips. So we're going to use ChatGPT and help us fill out all these answers as well. But I also mentioned this 50 trucking niche list. So let me just go ahead and open that up. You guys also get access to this as well, by the way. So when you click on this, make a copy, and we're just going to wait for this to load up. And essentially what this list is just a list of the 50 most popular trucking niches in the industry. I know a lot of you are brand new to truck dispatching and to trucking in general, so you might not know what's out there. What type of industry can you even provide truck dispatching for? So I've listed out 50 of the most profitable ones in my experience. Okay. But ideally, if you're brand new to this industry, even if you're experienced in this industry, I would only recommend focusing on these top 4, maybe these top 5. Okay. These are like the easiest to make money in as a truck dispatcher. You can target reefer trucking companies, flatbed trucking companies, dry van trucking companies, and box trucking companies. So these are the 4 that I would recommend you target. The rest of these become exponentially harder to make money in. But again, if you're brand new, keep it simple and just stick to these top 4. Okay. And you can go through the rest on your own time. So let me just go back to our niche selection worksheet and let's actually go through it. So as you can see in all these worksheets, I will kind of have questions for you that you just need to answer. Okay. And put a lot of thought into these answers that you're providing. Okay. If you provide detailed answers, it's only going to help you out in your business. So make sure that you're putting a lot of effort into these worksheets. This is the entire structure of your dispatching company. So in all the worksheets that I have, I'm essentially going to ask you questions, and I also provide an example answer that you can use for inspiration. Don't just copy my answer, make your own answer, come up with your own answers. Okay. So I've provided some example answers. For example, write down 5 niches you're deeply interested in. And I provided an example from my perspective. I'm gravitating towards the dry van semi-truck niche. There's a lot of carriers in that niche, and I'm fairly familiar with that industry as well. If you're brand new to this industry, you're not deeply interested in any of these trucking niches, don't worry, just pick one and move forward. Okay. And then write down 5 skills or areas of expertise you currently have. For my example, I wrote down, I know friends with trucking companies. I have a degree in finance. I'm good in front of the camera. I can easily make friends. I know how to do sales and marketing. So these are all things that I feel like I'm really good at. Okay. That don't necessarily apply to trucking, but they're valuable skills to have. If you're good at negotiating, if you're very detail oriented, if you're organized, those are all skills that you can list out. Okay. Again, they don't have to relate to trucking. Just list out skills that you think are valuable. And then you can go to step number 3, list the problems, fears, and desires of your chosen niches. I wrote down people with dry van trucking companies have a lot of loads available, yet they struggle to find high-paying lanes. They also don't feel comfortable managing the paperwork. Again, I'm putting thought and effort into each of my answers. Okay. And I want you guys to do the same to get value out of it. Now, if you're brand new to this industry, you might struggle with this step. Okay. You might not know a lot about the niche that you're trying to pursue. So that's where you'll have to start doing your own research online. You'll have to go on internet forums. You'll have to watch some YouTube videos. You'll have to do your own research outside of the videos that I make, in order to, answer all these questions. And that's totally fine. This is where, again, you're doing all the hard work. You're doing all the research, for your business. If you do this now, you will make a lot of money later down the road. Okay. And this doesn't need to be hard, and it doesn't need to take a lot of time for you to come up with these answers and do your research. This is where we can actually use AI tools like ChatGPT to help us out. So let's say, for example, I want to use this niche selection worksheet. Okay. So let's say, for example, I need help answering this question. I can actually go into ChatGPT. It kind of looks like this. I'm actually on the paid plan, but you can use the free version. It doesn't really matter. And you can come into ChatGPT and say something like, I'm filling out a niche selection worksheet, and I need your help to complete it. I'm a truck dispatcher. I'm a new truck dispatcher, and I want to work with the semi-truck drive-in niche. Based on this information, help me answer the following questions. And then you can come down here and paste that question. Okay. List the problems, fears, and desires of your chosen niches. And then you can also say, make the response detailed and effective. I guess that would work. Actually, make the response detailed is enough. Okay. And then you could go ahead and click enter. And we're basically just going to let this AI tool do all the research for us and, skim through all the articles, all the Reddit subreddits or whatever it may be, all the YouTube videos. And again, help us answer these questions. So you can see right over here, here's a detailed breakdown of the problems, fears, and desires for the semi-truck dry van niche to help you with your niche selection worksheet. So it's listed out all the problems over here. You can see inconsistent load availability, low freight rates, empty miles or deadheads, back office strain. That's huge. Okay, that's something that we would want to make a note of. We don't just want to provide dispatching. We also want to add extra services that we can, provide to the carriers. It's also giving us some fears. And then finally, it's just going to give us some desires of our niche as well. But you can see how detailed it's actually making all these answers. And all you need to do is just pick and choose which one you want to use. Okay. So just look through these and what do you think would be the biggest problem for carriers in your niche? Let's say, for example, low freight rates. Obviously, I feel like that would be a massive problem. So you can copy this and then just go back into your niche selection worksheet and you could go ahead and paste it. Okay. So there, you've already completed one. And you can do 2, 3, 4, and 5 very, very easily. Okay. So hope you guys can see just how powerful these AI tools are in order to do some research. So you can do this for every single step in here. But if you're going to use AI, again, I would recommend that you also do your own research on top of it. Okay. It's best if you're informed about the industry as well, and you're not just copying what the AI tool is telling you. It's a tool that we need to use to make our jobs easier, not to do all the job for us. Okay. So yeah, that's just a niche selection worksheet. Again, you will just follow this same process for all the worksheets that I have for you. And all the worksheets will be linked in the description. So we have the market research worksheet. We have the customer avatar worksheet. We have the offer worksheet, the messaging worksheet, dispatch uniqueness worksheet, and of course, the business plan worksheet. So make sure that you download all those and complete them. Okay. And that just brings me to this end of this training video. Let me just give you your homework steps that I want you guys to complete. First and foremost, know all the business principles. Write them down. These will save and excel you. Okay. These are just laws of business that are true no matter what type of business you start, especially if you want to start a truck dispatching business. The second thing I want you guys to understand is the difference between the traditional method versus the margin flow method. This is why dispatching is so powerful. So you need to understand the difference between the two. And these examples are what you can use when you're talking to carriers on your sales calls. You can explain to them why your role is so important to their business. The third thing I want you guys to do is just to calculate how much you could potentially make with truck dispatching. And how would that change your life if you were making that type of money? Okay. What if you hired dispatchers and they were also working with 10 trucks each? How much money could you end up making with this truck dispatching empire? And it's a lot of money. All right. But I want you guys to have that number in the back of your mind. Have a goal that you want to hit. And then finally, of course, complete all the worksheets. They're easy and fun to do with ChatGPT, and this is where the gold is made. This is where all the money is made. Okay. So before we get into the quote of the day, few quick things I need to mention. First and foremost, I would really appreciate it if you go to dispatchuniversity.com/review and leave a testimonial if you got any sort of value out of this training video. That really helps me out. Plus, you can win some special prizes. Also, if you want to sign up for the full course, you can go to school.com/dispatcheruniversity. We will promise that you will make $5,000 per month within 6 months, or you get all your money back. Okay. And as long as you finish the course, finish all the homework, and provide a weekly update, you qualify for this insane money back guarantee. And you can get started for only $97 per month. It's the cheapest truck dispatching program on the market. And then, of course, the last thing I'll mention is if you need more help, go to dispatcheruniversity.com/calendar and you can book your free one-on-one dispatch coaching call with one of our dispatch specialists. Only limited spots are available. So with all that out of the way, let's just get into the quote of the day, which is by Henry Ford. And he said, "Thinking is the hardest work there is, which is probably the reason so few engage in it." And I think this applies so well to the topic of this entire training video. We talked a lot about putting in all the hard work in the beginning of your business, in the setup and the planning of your business. That's why I've created the worksheets for you. Okay. So make sure you actually do them. That is where the money is actually made. And with that out of the way, guys, let's get to work. You know your homework for the day. Do it before you go to the next training video.